Love to welcome everybody to our NightVision event. This is our second season. As you could tell from the primer, we're working on our video introduction, so love feedback on that if you can. But thank you for joining everybody. I know today we have a bit of a heartwarming and solemn topic to talk about, so I want to take that very seriously and discuss it. But big thank you to all of the panel hosts that are coming in today to share their stories and their passion and their personal involvements with the Ukrainian crisis that's occurring. And my heart is out and prayers are for all the Ukrainian citizens and for everybody involved with the conflict there from all sides. So with that, I want to introduce our panel if I can. And then I'm going to say a few words on just the state of cyber before we dig into some questions with the panelists. Our first member of the panel is Iryna Shevel. Iryna, thank you for joining. I appreciate you coming on board and being a part of this. I know you are a senior director of engineering in Kiev in a development center there. Long history of project management, engineering management, incredible service in IT and engineering for your career, 15 plus years of experience in it. And manages up to 240 people. So I know you're heavily involved with management, a lot of people's lives, and a lot of what we're doing. And really appreciate it. I know you're a native citizen of Ukraine as well, and have just done a ton of work in interfacing with American companies and Western world companies during your time frame as well. So thank you for joining. We also have Tanya Takariva. I hope I got your last name close, Tanya. I'm sorry if I didn't. But also, thank you. I know you're also involved with development and engineering as well. Many years experience there in engineering, project management, delivery management, etc. Lots of experience. You studied at the National Technical University of Ukraine in Kiev as well, Masters of Information Technology. So thank you as well for joining, Tanya. Appreciate that. Love it. John Sarafini, whom has joined us as well today, is the founder and CEO of Hawkeye 360, an extremely important company, does low Earth orbit satellites using RF analytics, incredibly game-changing capabilities. But John is an expert, not just in technology, but in space as well. Previously, he was at Percipient Networks, Whitewood Encryption Systems, Allied Minds, incredible track record of shareholder value. But even more important than that, John is an amazing American as well, former Airborne Ranger, qualified U.S. Army Infantry, former West Point graduate as well, and former Harvard Business School as well. So John, incredible career yourself. Thank you for joining. I know you have a lot of stories from the front lines as well with what you've been doing. I appreciate you joining us as well. We also have Ottavio Ferrer, who's joined us. He's the President and Chief Technology Officer and co-founder of Safeguard Cyber, a company who focuses in on securing social and digital channels, knows a thing or two about cybersecurity and then some, and has helped build the relationship with a lot of Ukrainian development, consulting, engineering over his years. Incredible advocate for that community with incredible output of engineering that he's been able to produce for the company. Prior to that, he was the Chief Technology Officer of OpenIQ, Director of Technology at Heartbeat Digital, and a long career in running engineering and building and founding companies. So Ottavio, welcome. Along with him, Jim Ting, the Senior VP in Engineering, Professional Services, Cloud Services at Safeguard Cyber, another person who has been intimately involved in Ukrainian management and works directly with Tanya and Iryna. So we look forward to hearing from Jim. Jim has a long career as well. And last but certainly not least, we have a very special guest. Vitalia Panch is an incredible resource as well, Chief Security Officer of the state of California. And Vitalia is from Kiev and has family in the area, some of which is actually fighting in the war. He has got a lot of personal experience, not just in helping the community financially, but also working alongside many members of his family in a lot of the crisis that's been occurring and going on. Long experience in cybersecurity, Vitaly, thank you so much for joining us today. So there's our panel today. I think we really want to shift to that in just a minute, but what I first wanted to do is just cite a couple things, if I could, on sort of the atmosphere that's been happening in the cyber domain here in the Ukraine-Russia conflict. And I know many of you follow it because we've been doing a lot of series here with NightDragon on it, but it's pretty incredible to watch 69 days into the conflict, sort of the atmosphere we have with both now the kinetic warfare that's occurring along with the cyber warfare that's occurring. And, you know, I guess there's some good news and bad news from all of that. But, you know, the bad news first, you know, we've been seeing an incredible array of cyber attacks along with all the military attacks occurring, 10 times the increase in cyber activity as reported by multiple cybersecurity companies. And this is a market segment in Ukraine that's been under incredible cyber attacks for a decade or more. To see a 10 times increase just in the last 69 days is saying something. But more importantly, and probably most devastating, is the type of attacks that's occurring. Lots of data wipers, destructive types of malware that we're seeing, you know, massive increase in these wipers, hitting hundreds of computers, infrastructure everywhere. I know some of you have been reading about it, but we're seeing some very, very ingenious attacks by the Russian SVR and GRU on Ukrainian infrastructure there, government, banking, commerce in every way we could have imagined. Also attacks on the power grid, which had been successful in years past, not as successful this time around, but you know, a lot of this has just created a really challenging atmosphere from a supply chain point of view, from a risk point of view. One of our companies in Teros has done a lot of mapping of the supply chain risk from Ukraine and the US. And just to give you a couple stats there, there's more than 450 firms just in the US. And today you'll hear about 2 of them that are intimately involved with them, but 450 firms in the US, 200 in Europe that are involved with Ukraine and have supply chain interactions with Ukraine. So when you look at the interactions between the US and Ukraine from a software point of view, IT point of view, it's pretty substantial as we've seen. We've also seen DDoS attacks and other types of attacks on satellite infrastructure, including the Viasat attack on a VPN misconfiguration, which in one man's opinion could have been a lot more devastating. Unfortunately, good reactions and response by a lot of our government and private community on solving that. And then other good news as well, you know, part of this has been an opportunity to bring down a lot of Russian infrastructure. If you haven't seen it, I did a CNBC thing on the Hydra marketplace takedown. This is one of the most substantial marketplaces taken down. This was a 7-year infrastructure with a lot of ransomware infrastructure that was being supported through Hydra, and a great takedown by the allies on a lot of Russian infrastructure. And that was also true for the Conti leaks. If you didn't follow that, a very significant understanding of the Russian operatives, both shell and sheltered organizations as a part of the intelligence community, putting a lot of damage for potentially years to their infrastructure. So a lot of challenging areas in cyber, some positive silver linings that have come out of this as well. And I'm hoping that we're able to learn a lot from this to defend against the Russian cyber domain, particularly in years to come from what we were able to uncover. But what I really want to do is focus in a lot on the humanitarian side today, if we can. And the stories from the individuals on the call are incredible. So I want to start out, if we can, with Iryna and Tanya. If you could talk a little bit about yourself for just a minute, maybe Iryna first to you. I want to really start with sort of the folks in sort of Ukraine and what it's like. So first, give a little bit of your backgrounds, if you would, if you could extend what I said initially. Iryna, over to you.
Sure, thank you, Dave, and thank you for inviting me. It's a great pleasure to be here in this group. So my name is Iryna. I'm 37 years old. I'm a Ukrainian. I was born and lived my entire life in Kiev, which is the capital of Ukraine. I graduated from Ukrainian National University, Kiev Polytechnical Institute as a Master of Computer Science. I started my career as a software developer back then, 17 years ago, but I pretty quickly realized that I'm a little bit better and enjoy a little bit more talking to people and dealing with people rather than writing code, which I love too, but strength. So that's why and when my management career started. I'm now an engineering director in charge of 240 people. And my main responsibilities are ensuring smooth delivery, software delivery, ensuring great communication with our customers and stakeholders in the US and other countries, of course, and great team morale, of course. Outside of my professional life, I'm a wife and I'm a mom of 2 children, a 7-year-old Sophia and a 17-year-old cat, Saxon.
Thank you, Iryna. I love the cat part. Yes, appreciate that. Tanya, over to you for your background, if you would.
Yeah, thank you a lot. Nice to meet you all, and thank you a lot for inviting us to this great event. A couple of words about myself. I was born in a small town of Eastern Ukraine, and at the age of 16, I moved to Kiev because decided to gain a degree in computer science from the best university within the Ukraine. That was very well-weighted decision because starting 12, I've additionally learned programming, computer technologies, participated in relevant events and competition. Right now, I'm already 12 years in IT industry, started as a QA engineer, then moved into project management. For 7 years, I've contributed a lot in IT for investment banking. And right now I contribute as much as I can for cybersecurity. My non-working life is quite usual. I have a husband and 2 fluffy cats. During winter period, we like snowboarding a lot and jumping on trampoline. Over the summer, that's wakeboarding. Our evenings very standard, that watching TV series and time to time drinking red wine. So living life of standard family. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that, Tanya. I love the love of cats and snowboarding and skiing. So I'm with you on all of those fronts. And red wine, by the way. I will share that with you one day, hopefully. Turning to a little bit more of a solemn note, if I could, maybe back over to you, Iryna. Could you talk a little bit about, kind of put yourself back to just prior to sort of the invasion, the crisis beginning? Maybe tell everybody, if you would, just from your perspective, what was it like on the first day to really kind of learn what we were involved with, and then maybe Tanya, you follow up with that similar question.
Sure, Dave. So basically, 5 days before the war started, me and my family decided to go for a so-called workation to Ukrainian Carpathian Mountains. And that is exactly the reason why on the early morning of February 24th, this weren't missile strikes to wake me up, but it was my phone with my mom calling me from Kiev saying the war has begun. And needless saying, it was all over in the media. So we in Ukraine were also kind of, thinking about it, but I truly have never believed this would happen. So first thing which happens to you in such situation is shock. For me, it was like, I could cry, I could speak to people, I could shout, but I couldn't actually recognize my own emotions. So it's all like a little bit of dream. It took me around 15 minutes to get in touch with all my family members, loved ones, the closest people. And then I switched to my second family, which is my team, my colleagues. And obviously, all this Skypes, all these channels, emails, that's the second communication channel we used. So because in our organization, we had a very well established BCP plan. So most of the people knew they would be supported. And most of the people, when we started reaching out to them, were already either in their move towards safer places like Western border, West Ukraine, or were going to do so. Needless saying, there were not a lot of people willing or ready to work in that day. And priority number one for us was ensuring everyone's health. And because I was already in a safer place, I had this capacity to do something productive. So the things which I realized were the priorities for us was first getting in touch with every single team member. knowing where they are, knowing if they're safe, knowing if they need any help, any support from us, and supporting them. Tracking their statuses, of course, and etc. Second major task was ensuring our colleagues abroad have some information and are not, in this informational vacuum, to keep them updated. And third thing, but also important, we immediately entered in the crisis management state, because obviously we have many projects, many critical tasks, many deadlines, so we had at least to set the right expectations. So Dave, ended my day around 11 p.m. on February 24th. That was when I was able to reach out to every single person in the team. I felt almost dead, to be quite honest. And that's when I reached out to Tanya, who was on vacation back then, and she wrote me earlier asking if I need her help. I knew this work would continue 24/7 for all the upcoming days. And I literally asked her to pause her vacation and come back to work because I knew I wouldn't do it myself. That was my first day.
Over to you, Tanya, for a minute, and then I want to ask you another question, Iryna. What was your first day like, Tanya?
Yeah, so as Iryna mentioned, I was on vacation and I was outside of Ukraine. So 7 a.m., I just woke up, taken to the hand's phone, and saw a bunch of messages from my sister saying that war started. I was not able to believe in that. I started to look through chat that we have, started watching news, and I was not able to believe that that's really happening already for a couple of hours in Ukraine. So in that time, my life freezed. Yeah, because I was not able to understand how I may help right now, sitting outside of Ukraine. I was safe, but I was willing to help. On 25th, I've got back to work, and the main priority for me was to reach each and every person. Yeah, to understand that they are reachable, they are safe. We had a rule that on daily basis we should have at least one touch with each and every person, understand their location, understand how are they, may we help with evacuation or accommodation somehow, and ensure that they are still reachable. There were various channels, that were various messengers, personal phones, anyhow to reach these people. And that was like kind of couple of days we are doing this while people were traveling and moving. On Monday 26th, that was the first time we've got online at work. That was just a couple of us, and we were trying to understand where are we, whom we have, and what we can do. Because that was really difficult. Yeah, from one side, that's safety, that is our top priority. It was and it remains the same. From other hand, we had very important thoughts in our mind. First of all, work helps a lot. That brings normality, at least piece of normality to your life. Second, we care about our product. And the third and very important for us was, in case we are working, we may earn some money, pay taxes, and in such way support Ukrainian economics, because in one moment, a lot of people lose their job. So, and in fact, that day I've recognized that Ukrainians can do their job anytime. I've used to know that even on 24th, a couple of our guys were on the calls. They wrote a couple of lines of code, ran tests. Yeah, nothing stopped them from that. So our strategy was like revise priorities, recognize 3-4 top priority items, realign and move forward as much as we can. And on that day, potentially I will not imagine, but I was thankful to COVID times, because that gave us a great benefit. We already learned to know how to work remotely as a team.
Wow, fascinating silver lining from COVID on that front. Wow, what an incredible story. You're very inspirational, Tanya, on just the desire to keep working and to like give back and, keep supplying, sort of work to the economy of Ukraine. I can tell you as a personal experience, I've been tracking Russian cyber criminals and attackers for 20 years, and I just never thought I would see this day where we would see a military invasion of such atrocities. And so, like you, I was incredibly shocked and proud to see if I could, anything I could do, even if it's just telling stories like yourself to the world in a way that, you know, maybe we can all unite to help the Ukrainians in this conflict. So thank you for that. Iryna, over to you for a second. I want to hear how you got out. How did you help get your families out? And how did you help get some of the employees out? What was that like? And maybe for both of you for a second.
First of all, it's a very difficult decision to leave your country, especially for all of Ukrainians. All of us have families, like, you know, I have my mom in Kiev and etc. So it's a especially difficult decision for females who are eligible for leaving the country, because we have this martial law which blocks males from leaving Ukraine. And I wasn't planning to leave until on the evening of February 25th. We found out that we had a legal reason to cross the border with entire family, including my husband. There's a list of these exceptional reasons approved by our President Zelensky, and we were eligible. My husband didn't want to leave. He wanted to stay, but I literally begged him to do so, because when you look at your child, you want a better and, you know, a more secure environment for her. So on the morning of February 26th, we left the hotel, and the road to Krakow, Poland, which would typically take us around 8 hours, took us 50 hours without sleep and just driving. 50 hours because of the huge lines of the cars standing on the border. We had to cross another border from Moldova to Romania to Hungary and Slovakia, and that's how we ended up being in Krakow. And on the February 28th in the morning, we had to celebrate our daughter's birthday in the car. She turned 7, and the only present we were able to get was on the gas station. We bought a Kinder egg and a little toy puppy, which is a very simple, but my girl, she pretended it was the best gift ever. And in the evening that day, we arrived to Krakow. Tanya was already there, and she helped us to rent an apartment. So we had a little celebration. In the same time, for our team members, we were supporting everyone, but because of the martial law, only female are eligible to leave Ukraine now. So we're providing them all possible support with our CE delivery centers, and supporting them legally and in all aspects, but not everyone has decided to leave Ukraine. Many people decided to stay in our homeland.
Thank you for sharing that. I know how hard that was. Wow. Tanya, maybe just add on if your story is similar or different. I'd love to hear that.
That's a bit different, yeah, because we were outside, but my husband took a decision to get back to Ukraine when I'm settled in Poland. So on 27th, we arrived into Poland, and on 28th, he moved back. There were 2 reasons of such a decision. First of all, that our cats, who unfortunately, due to the entire situation, they left alone in our apartment. And the second one, he was willing to defend Ukraine and, if needed, provide all his efforts. And right now he is part of Ukrainian armed forces.
Our hearts and prayers for him for sure, Tanya, as well. So thank you for that. Let me transition a little bit. I want both of you to stay and have a chat about the next few topics as we talk a little bit about some of the helpers who are coming in here as well into Ukraine. I'd like to transition and talk to John and to Ottavio and Jim here. And maybe I'm going to start with John Sarafini, the CEO of Hawkeye 360. You know, John, you know, I mentioned your bio as well. I'm not sure what more you want to share about yourself, but also about Hawkeye 360 and the incredible work you're doing and the company's doing, and in this time of crisis. So maybe over to you, just for a little backdrop.
Sure, thanks, Dave. You know, we were very pleased to have NightDragon lead our Series C round, and proud to work alongside you and Ken Gonzalez and the rest of the team. So thank you for asking me to join. Hawkeye 360 is building a constellation of small satellites that uniquely fly in clusters of 3 to geolocate and analyze RF signals from space. effectively signals above a watt in power between 150 megahertz and 18 gigahertz. Those can be detected from space. They can be geolocated and analyzed. And ultimately, once it's been processed and fused with other modalities like electro-optical imagery and synthetic aperture radar imagery, this can be converted into actionable insights for customers, particularly defense, security, and intelligence. So it should come no surprise that we have relevance in Ukraine. I would say that I'll be a bit vague in exactly what we're doing in Ukraine, but I will say that we cleared a significant amount of our collection capacity over Europe to be able to focus on collecting signals over Ukraine in support of multiple different customers. Eventually, we found ourselves spending a lot of time collecting GPS interference and signals that are being jammed by Russian elements, and being able to analyze the pattern of life of how those GPS interference signals were changing over time. And that's been instructive to us and to our customers to Russian tactics and order of battle. And it's been very interesting to see how these patterns have shifted over time, particularly as it relates to the movement of Russian forces into Ukraine and eventually on their retreat out.
John, I can't tell you how proud I am of, you and the company Hawkeye, but also, just what we've been trying to build here with NightDragon, the partnership with you. And, it's times like this that, it's not about money, it's about the mission, it's about giving back, and it's about providing a service. And watching Hawkeye in action operationally has been incredibly impressive, and your leadership as well. You're a real inspiration to me and to our whole NightDragon team. Talk a little bit, if you would, about your personal side. The day you sent me a text saying, hey, I'll be out and I'll be in Poland and on the border, was a little bit of a shock from an investor point of view and a liability point of view. I'm like, yes, I want you to go, but I was a little nervous as well. Talk about why you decided to go, what you did for a minute, and tell your story personally as well, if you could.
Sure. Well, we have a really strong ethos of service at Hawkeye. There is nothing more important to us than accomplishment of the mission for our customers and taking care of our people. Priority number one. And so when we see what's occurring in Ukraine and the impact it's going to have upon the balance of power in Eastern Europe, it's become very personal to our company, most of whom have served in some regard, maybe not as a veteran in the military, but service in the US government and in the defense industrial base over time. And so this was important and personal to all of us. And I felt myself compelled to work with a few of my West Point classmates to go down to the border, Poland and Ukraine, on a humanitarian basis to help with some of those activities, to deliver some critical supplies. And while we were there, I had the privilege to meet a number of phenomenal non-governmental organizations, NGOs, folks like Spirit of America and Save Our Allies and IREX and the Lions Club and Aerial Response Group, all of whom are doing amazing work in support of Ukrainian refugees and the Ukrainian military. I mean, ultimately, I found that there was an amazing dichotomy, because on the border, you see this horrific tragedy in front of you, people coming across the border with nothing but the clothes on their back and their children in their arms, older women, young women, children, not many men, as you know, some older men, but obviously been traumatized and very fortunate to have been able to escape Russian aggression. And so that it's horrific, obviously tragic. It makes you angry. But at the same time, as you look around you on the border and the border crossing that I was at, you're inspired by the outreach of good people, good Americans, good Egyptians, good Israelis, good everyone. I counted 10 or 15 different nationalities of people who were down on the border with NGOs lined up on either side of the walkway to accept these refugees as they streamed across, to offer them foodstuffs and supplies and to help give them rest and to get them situated with housing inside of Poland, and the Polish military and first responder community who are carrying their things across the board. I mean, it's just inspiring to see fellow human beings who are being so good for no other reason than it's the right thing to do. So having had that experience and wanting to do more, I came back energized to raise money to support some of these non-governmental organizations that had great shovel-ready humanitarian projects ready to go. I teamed up with the National Security Space Association, individual named Steve Jakes, who runs that group. And together we've been able to raise about just under $1 million from the space ecosystem. A few of those companies NightDragon is invested in, like Capella and others. Great companies read by great Americans, great people. And that capital is now going to be ingested into a number of these different high-value, shovel-ready humanitarian projects to do some critical good for Ukrainian refugees and for the diaspora now resettled in places like Poland and Romania.
John, thank you for that. It's incredible. Could you just maybe expand a little on what were you seeing? You know, the lives like like how the living conditions for the refugees coming over, their spirit, you know, sort of their will, you know, like, and I want to go back to Iryna and Tanya on this question too, from their perspective, what their lives are like now, being completely uplifted the way they are. You know, what was your perspective, John? I know you were helping there a lot and feeling it. And like you said, children in their arms and the clothes on their back and nothing else left. But what did you see from the intangible, the X factor, the side of that maybe you could share? I'd love to hear.
Yeah, I think I'd say three things. One is having seen Ukrainian people throughout Poland and Warsaw and Krakow and the border, et cetera. The recurring theme is they're just very resilient, tough people. I mean, they've faced hardships in their lives, and obviously right now, and they're able to overcome it, and that's amazing. It's inspiring to see that they're able to deal with these hardships and to be stuck in a train station for days and weeks on end. The second thing I took away is that the Poles are lovely people. And the Polish government are just amazing in what they've done to open up their borders, open up their homes for weeks, if not months now, to support millions of people who have crossed over the border seeking a better life or a reprieve from the horrific injustices that are happening in Russia. And I think that's the lost story in all of this is what the Polish government and the Polish people have done in accepting and welcoming and embracing their neighbors for no other reason than it was the right thing to do. And the third thing that I took away, and maybe this is just very anecdotal and just fleeting, but we brought over a number of toys for children. And when we hand out these toys for these kids in places like the Warsaw train station and in other places, it wasn't the toys that lit up their faces. It was when they heard that the toys were from America. Where there was Americans who cared, that there are Americans who had gone out of their way to pull together these gifts and to deliver them in person. I think that was inspirational to them to know that Americans care about what's going on.
Thank you, John, for sharing that. That's amazing to hear what you've been doing and what the company's been doing and sort of that side. I want to go over to Iryna and Tanya back for a minute and hear from your perspective. What's life like? Where are you living right now? And a little bit about kind of life in Poland for you at the moment. I'd love to hear that side about and what's going on in your own lives.
Dave, I would like to start from thanking everyone here again. I, in my life, have never thought I would be a refugee. And the first time I really felt I am a refugee was exactly the moment we crossed the border. And I suddenly saw all these European and American, now I realize, people offering us tea, coffee, food. Like, I never thought in my life I would need this type of help. And I couldn't believe all these people are there for me, my family, and other Ukrainians, which they have never met before. It was incredible. I will never forget it in my life. And I'm super grateful for this. All my experience in Poland has been super supportive. And again, we'll never forget it. We'll never forget it. Sorry.
Thank you for that, Tanya. How about you? Where are you spending your days now, and What's life like for you at the moment?
At work. I'm spending a lot of time at work.
Coding, okay.
Yeah, because that's bringing normality. But first of all, I would definitely like to thank you, Polish people, for everything that they are doing. For example, my landlord, he's amazing. He is always in touch with us. He is interested in how are we, and that not just because he is good landlord, because he cares. He cares how Ukrainians are here. But from life perspective, it's on pause, at least for myself, just because I'm a person who likes to plan a lot and very well in advance, where I will be traveling next year. Are we going to buy a new house, or we will still negotiate for years with my husband on doing so? And right now all these plans ruined. And even for first couple of weeks, I was not feeling comfortable, like even to do something with my hair. Because like my question was, am I allowed to do this? Yeah or no, because people in Ukraine cannot do this. And am I allowed or no? Yeah, so I cannot say that like my life is dynamic. Yeah, right now, that's kind of on daily basis, you're waiting that in the morning, you will see some announcement from your government that guys, we won and you can get back to Ukraine.
Thank you for sharing that, by the way. It's an incredibly heartfelt stories that you both have. Let me bring in Ottavio and Jim for a moment into this conversation, as well as other helpers in this crisis, and particularly ones that were doing it from corporate America as well. And as I mentioned earlier, Ottavio is the co-founder of Safeguard Cyber. I'm curious, Ottavio, Jim, you can comment too. What was it like realizing you have 240 employees in the Ukraine? A lot of your engineering is there. What support did you give, and how did you interact during those first days during the beginning of this crisis? You there, Ottavio?
I am.
There you go.
So,
Turn
yeah,
your video on if you would, if it's okay.
maybe Sarah, you can help me. It says unable to start video.
Okay, just maybe make your comments. We can see your picture at least for now. There you go.
Perfect. There you go. Thank you, sir. Thank you. So, yeah, just as a matter of background. So, Safeguard Cyber is a NightDragon portfolio company. We provide security and compliance for email and multi-channel communication. I think, as you could see from this discussion, in a time of war, these digital channels become even more important. But the reality is they're being used as a new attack vector with modern attacks such as social engineering and ransomware being delivered from these channels. So Safeguard Cyber provides both for governments and for major corporations the protection for these channels. And I actually take a step back, Dave. I want to thank the board for Safeguard Cyber, your participation, Ken Gonzalez. We were on top of these issues early, right? So our day one was not the invasion. It was the day we started discussing the possibility of invasion in the board and the actions we took to establish a BCP plan. Ken really made us think hard about what we would do even before we were able to even using the NightDragon network, access unique intelligence and about the possibility of the invasion. So that was super helpful to make the case and start transitioning even before the invasion started. So, super grateful for NightDragon to and the board work to prepare us through a BCP plan. But that first day was a challenging day, regardless of all the preparation you do, right? As Mike Tyson says, it like everybody's plan, as soon as you get hit in the nose, changes. And we ultimately we had full confidence in people like Iryna and Tanya. We knew they would do the right things. It was about enabling the people to be successful. Our job was to make sure they had the financial support, they had the transportation, and really track the BCP execution. because we have such incredible people that went to work immediately, as you saw, despite the incredible circumstances. They knew, they knew how to act. Jim, is there something you want to add?
Yeah, Jim, feel free to add if
Yeah.
you'd like. I know you're on the front lines of this too.
Sure. So, I mean, I work with Iryna and Tanya daily, right? So from that perspective, they're like my family. Their team are like my family as well. So it's hard. It's hard when you see it far away and can't be there. So we work very closely on how to make sure that people are the most important thing that we should care. People, their family, their safety. Now, throughout the progress, we obviously learned that, you know what, working, it does help, right? It's a certain type of way for folks to have focus, and they don't have to kind of wander around and think about different things. So we also integrate that into it, but we want to do it in a way that we understand that everyone's different. Everyone has different needs. Some have families, some have loved ones, some have people that are about to call up on military duties, and some have a very, very long travel, go to the Western region. So what as a corporation, what we try to do, and at least what Otavio and myself try to do, is help them on that basis to adjust to what's possible, to help them focus on work if that's what they need to, but to kind of balance that line on a day-to-day basis to make sure that we can provide them as much as they need, the help that they need, but not crossing over that one, because that is a very sensitive situation, and they're your family, so you want to do the best for them.
Thank you for sharing that, Jim. Otavio, I want to come back to both of you in just one second, but I want to bring Vitaly into this as well, because I want to ask you all a question in a minute. But Vitaly, if you turn on your camera for a minute as well, and I know you have some incredible experiences. I know you're the Chief Security Officer of the state of California, but being a Ukrainian native citizen as well, and a lot of things that you've been doing. Could you just tell us a little bit about your background and your personal experience for a minute? Then I want to ask about the cyber market. Over to you, Vitaly.
Yeah, certainly. Vitaly Panetchir, State of California, Chief Information Security Officer. I was born in Kiev, Ukraine. We migrated to the United States, to Sacramento specifically, almost 3 decades ago with my immediate family. However, I still do have members of my extended family out there in Kiev, Ukraine, some of them of which are on the front lines, and some of them are sheltering in place. But really, throughout the month of April, we've seen at our southern border here in California, between California and Mexico, we saw an influx or an increase of refugees from the Ukraine and really from Poland and countries like Romania making their way into Mexico. So really, in order to avoid a humanitarian crisis, there are dozens of Russian-speaking volunteers, religious organizations, private groups rushed to really organize food, shelter, medical, logistical support there on the border. So through a network of churches, nonprofit, non-governmental organizations, we really kind of banded together to really manage that supply chain process of everything that was needed to help support the people that are immigrating or migrating. And I will add that Sacramento is probably the biggest place in terms of having Slavic immigrants today. So we have about 100,000 Slavic people residing in Sacramento, with my family obviously being one. So there's a huge network of folks that really are going above and beyond to really help out. And we're really, I'm trying to step in from a logistical perspective, helping people really get settled, find homes, find hosting families that are gracious and nice enough to help those folks start a new life here in California and in town. So I'm really been grateful to kind of get involved with that process and help our friends and family and our extended community make their ways into California successfully.
Thank you for sharing that, Vitaly. Amazing story of helping on a whole different border, Mexico and the United States. And many people don't realize that that is an important area of the world at the moment as well for immigration for a lot of citizens who are seeking refuge. Talk a minute, if you would. I know you're protecting one of the largest states networks as well. In the last 69 days have been quite an interesting time period, and even prior, in protecting our networks, protecting our systems. Talk about it as a defender for a minute, if you would, if you can, about what it's been like. You know, have you seen an increase in attacks? How have you worked with the federal government? Any perspective you have on the unity that's coming around, not just between fellow CISOs working together, but federal levels, Ukrainian levels, any comments around being a defender that way?
Yeah, certainly the level of visibility, the level of alertness, and really the level of information sharing has exponentially increased, not just within our state and local partners, but also with the federal government. And I do want to add that California has always been a member, a member of the national, been an active member of the U.S. National Guard's Bureau State Partnership Program. So up until these current events that are happening today, California has been a pretty proactive and active state in partnering with the Ukrainian government and the Ukrainian military and conducting #1 joint incident response exercises, joint cyber defense and resiliency exercises. As a matter of fact, we had hosted Ukrainian military members within the California to work jointly with our California National Guard in terms of conducting cyber training exercises. And we have sent folks out there to Kiev to train locally out there on the ground. So it's been a pretty proactive state in terms of partnering way in advance since I want to say 1993 with that partnership that I mentioned earlier. So really our emphasis is on being able to elevate visibility of cybersecurity resiliency and really being prepared and having incident response plans, processes, procedures out in the forefront of the highest levels of government within California. So ultimately that we are prepared for any type of disruptive attacks at our state and our local governments.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Natalia. I've been very, very impressed and honored to be a part of helping in any way we've been able to help with NightDragon, but it's amazing to watch the unification of our communities in cyber coming together in ways that really have created a stronger defense, hopefully for years to come. I'm very proud of our administration, the US government, Biden's administration, with all the talent that's come in there, Jen Easterly, Chris Inglis, Rob Joyce, General Nagasone, and Newberger, everybody like high levels of literacy in cyber, working together, sharing intelligence with the community, with the CISOs around the world, what to patch, what to defend. It's good to see in a crisis, all of us unifying. Tobia, I'd love to bring you in or back in for this for a minute. What's the threat landscape been like from your perspective? You're a bit of an expert in information warfare. A lot of the misinformation that's going on, you're monitoring a lot of alternative channels and digital channels and have a lot of clients in the region. What's your view from that perspective?
Yeah, it's interesting. We found ourselves for the first time having to defend ourselves and our customers, right? So it was a unique moment. We've, and you mentioned some of the beginning, Dave, these window wipers were deployed on day one. That was on February 24th. The Russians really think of it in terms of 3 levels of attacks, right? We have the kinetic activity going on, we have the information warfare going on, and we have cybersecurity. It's a 3-pronged deployment of their tools that are started all on the 24th. Of course, we're involved in 2 of those 3, and they know that immediately in a crisis like these digital channels such as WhatsApp, Telegram, social media, cloud email are the new ways to communicate. And we saw a massive step up in the attacks and the social engineering that were deployed on these channels. Look at our colleagues, right? They had to resort to Skype and SMS and WhatsApp and to communicate. That's the new mode, and the attackers know this. And so it was great to see like our technology then tested in a step up in terms of risk scenario. Our customers experienced more attacks in these channels. We found novel strains as well that we've been reporting through our threat intel team led by Storm that has got great reviews in various publications, and folks are starting to defend these. So, you know, we've been educating the public about these new attacks as they unfolded, and we've been able to collect the data. But you know, and that's on the true cyber sense that they are using these channels to deliver ransomware and malware and social engineer people to take over the laptops and deliver these hard disk wipers that are incredibly destructive. So, and then on defending ourselves, our first priority was our people and safety, as Jim mentioned, but I had to worry about our assets, right? And working with Iryna and our security team there, it was great to see that, you know, we were able to stop some of those attacks because we had invested in a security stack that was ready for it, inclusive of using our own software, right? We eat your own dog food. So, or drink your own champagne might be a better analogy. So, yeah, it's been a crazy 30 days, Dave. You know, everyone is working incredibly hard, but no one feels tired because the work is so meaningful and the work is so rewarding in this moment in history.
Thank you for sharing that, Tavio. Let me end this segment here with a question to all of you, and I'll start with Vitaly, but I really want everybody to kind of hear, what can we all as individuals be doing? You know, if there's any ideas that you have, or programs or sponsorships. I saw a question that came from something Vitaly mentioned, but I'd love to all of you, if you have an opinion on this, to mention it. Vitaly, people were asking a little bit more about the sponsorship program for Ukrainian families, and anything more you could share for individuals or post on the chat, or maybe later when I post this video, I could share as well. But Vitaly, what is that sponsorship program? What can other individuals do to help Ukrainian families here at home?
Certainly the outreach, especially from our cybersecurity community, has been phenomenal. Everybody wants to help in one way or another. So really, I did mention in the chat, I've personally been involved with a religious organization here in town, Genesis Church. So if you go to genesis.church, that's GENESIS.church, and we facilitate volunteer management. We facilitate monetary financial support through that nonprofit, as well as helping families get homes and really helping families get acclimated as they're moving on to be members of our society here locally. So I've actually been fortunate enough to help out a handful of families here, find hosting families that are in our industry that are going above and beyond to help out. So I'll really start there, because you know the Ukrainians there that have migrated across the border and borders are really having a difficult time. Yeah.
Great. Thank you for sharing that, Vitaly, and it's posted on the chat for everybody's edification. I'd like to ask John Sarafini as well if you'd chime in. I know you mentioned quite a few organizations and ways that people are able to donate. I know that was space specific in some ways, an initiative, but any thoughts for how individuals could work together to influence, contribute in any ways from your perspective, John?
Well, I don't think there's any shortage of great NGOs that folks can work with, or Vitaly just mentioned a few great ways in which people to get involved. You know, I think I'd say pace yourself. Unfortunately, this is going to be a long conflict, and we as humans are developing very short attention spans. I mean, who thinks about Afghanistan right now, right? So, we need to make sure that we're keeping our eyes on this for the long term and making sure that we have resources and capital and care and prayers, not just today, but in 6 months from now or 12 months from now.
Thank you, John. I want to end it, I know, with the last 3 minutes, but I want to bring back Iryna and Tanya for a second. And thank you both women for all that you're doing. And any last comments from both of you on ways we can all help, and from your perspective, I know living through it and being a part of it and in a way that is unimaginable. Any last comments from you on ways we can help you?
Dave, from my perspective, I wanted to bring your attention to the fact, and also the entire community here, that we have incredible people in Ukraine, incredible armed forces in Ukraine, but also incredible engineering forces in Ukraine. And if you have a chance to start your collaboration with Ukrainian software engineers, it's going to be a great opportunity for them and to help Ukrainian economy. And secondly, last, but I wanted to say this, I know this might be very obvious, but I'm a Russian-speaking Ukrainian. We have no Nazism and have never had any Nazism in Ukraine. So just to make it clear, we're a peaceful country. And thank you for everything you and the Western society are already doing. We truly appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for that. Tanya, any last words from you?
Yeah, just would like to echo Iryna. I'm also a Russian-speaking person. Yeah, you understand I'm from Eastern Ukraine, from the Donbas region. And to highlight, in our team, we are peacefully communicating both Ukrainian and Russians. Someone talking to me in Ukrainian, I'm replying in Russian, and that's totally fine for us. And two things to add. I would like to ask everyone to do not forget about us, talk about us, and support us as much as you can. And in my life right now, I have one very important dream, that no one in the world will experience the same. It's really scary if even you are in a safe place right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanya. Thank you, Iryna, Tavio, Jim, John, Tally, thank you so much for joining. I appreciate the heartfelt comments. Thank you for all your services. And Iryna, Tanya, we wish you all the best prayers for your safe return to your homeland. Thank you for all the comments on ways we can contribute. Look for a post that we'll send out with a lot of the ways in which we can all engage to help. And all our prayers are out for every Ukrainian citizen during this time of crisis. So thank you, everybody, for joining. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you
Dave.
a lot.
So much.
Bye.